Hi, this is my presentation for Module 6. The data collection technique that I did was surveys. According to the Mertlier text, the term survey refers to a collective group of quantitative data collection techniques that involve the administration of a set of questions or statements to a sample population. What makes this data collection unique? Surveys can be administered verbally. They can also be administered digitally through the use of Google Forms or Microsoft Forms, and then it can also be administered paper pencil. Data is numerical instead of narrative. Surveys permit the teacher or researcher to gather a lot of information relatively quickly. Surveys can be open-ended or closed response where the participants use a rating scale. When using the rating scale, a question would maybe look like, which ice cream flavor is your favorite? And then it would list vanilla, chocolate, strawberry, and participants would click which one of those three is their favorite. Then there's the Likert scale, and with this, there's a statement. So the statement would say, chocolate is my favorite ice cream, and then participants would click disagree, neutral, or agree. Is it qualitative or quantitative? It is a quantitative data collection technique. It's numerical. Participants can rate feelings, attitudes, interests, or perceptions about a given topic. An example would be, what is your favorite core subject? And they could pick English, social studies, science, or math. And then the results could conclude that 26% of students surveyed favored science. So that's how the data comes off quantitatively instead of qualitatively. When I first started researching the survey data collection technique, I thought it would be qualitative because you're getting kind of a written response, since when you survey people, you're listing different responses. So I thought that it would be more qualitative, but actually it is quantitative because you're looking at the percentage of people surveyed and what they responded. What types of questions would this technique best answer? So previously I mentioned two ways that surveys work. There's the Likert scale, and that starts with a statement that asks participants to respond with an agree or disagree continuum. So for example, please indicate the degree which you agree or disagree with the following statement. I'm happy with my purchase. And then the purchaser would say strongly disagree or strongly agree, or then NA if it's not applicable to them. There's also a rating scale. With the rating scale, there's closed response and open response. In a closed response question, there's only a select number of responses that a participant can pick in. So for example, what is your favorite sport? They could pick football, baseball, basketball, hockey, or other. So it's limited to the type of responses that the participant can give. In an open response, it's exactly what it says. It's open. So what is your favorite sport? Participants can say football, baseball, basketball, or hockey, or they could list maybe gymnastics, softball, figure skating, volleyball, whatever their favorite sport is. So the open response gives you a little bit more variance in your data, or variety, sorry. What are some strengths with this data collection technique? It's very effective at collecting data. It's essentially written versions of structured interviews. They're user-friendly and user-preferred, so participants can answer a survey at their own time frame. It's appropriate for content-based questions. And then it can show a neutral base or when participants have no opinion on the matter. So if you use the Likert scale, participants, I should say, can write if they have no opinion or they're neutral on one of the questions that's given. What are some weaknesses with this data collection technique? It can be time-consuming to view and analyze all of the data collected in the surveys. Closed response questions are limited to the responses that participants can give, so the data isn't always accurate because participants aren't truly giving maybe their favorite sport or their favorite ice cream flavor. They're picking from a list that the researcher comes up with. So those responses aren't always accurate. And then depending on the age of participants, it can be hard to understand the number scale that is used when using the Likert scale. So for example, if you would use this in an elementary school classroom, you would maybe have to go over what is strongly disagree and strongly agree, and then also the middle ground, or completely disagree and completely agree. I've used these kinds of scales with my own students, and they're in fifth grade, and so even some of my fifth grade students have a hard time distinguishing their thoughts between strongly agree and strongly disagree, because with them it's kind of yes or no type thing. So that's one of the limitations or weaknesses with data collection using surveys. Concerns that I have about this data collection technique. I do think it is a valid tool, but only if you form the right types of questions for your participants. I also was reviewing the closed responses. I don't always think that's necessarily valid because you're not giving participants the option to form their own opinions on certain things. As far as reliability, some of the questions that I was just thinking of as I was reading through the text is, are students or participants genuinely taking the time to fill out the survey, or are they just clicking through just to finish it and to have it done? Also, I've used surveys in my class a lot, and not all students take it seriously, so that goes back to my first point is, are they really taking the time to fill it out, or are they just clicking through? And then how do you stop participants from replying more than once to your survey? I know when using Google Forms, you can set the settings so that students can only respond once, but in doing a large survey, are you able to do that kind of setting? Or if you do it paper pencil, how do you stop people from sending in more than one response and stuff like that? Especially if it's anonymous, could they mess up with or could they skew your results if they reply more than once? And as far as it being ethical, responses do need to be anonymous when taking a survey. So making sure that students aren't writing their name on the paper, or if you're doing it digitally, that you're not collecting any type of data from them. And then my other question, as far as ethics goes, is Google Forms or Microsoft Forms an ethical way of collecting data? Because technically you could do it anonymously, but since it is over the internet, is anything really anonymous? So is it better to do surveys verbally or paper pencil, just as far as the anonymous side of it? So that was kind of a question that I had going through. What is the best way to do a survey? Because is anything really anonymous if you're sending it through email addresses or Google Forms and stuff like that? So that's kind of just my thought process through it. And then the last thing is, I've done surveys in my classroom a lot, not for a data collection tool, as far as like my research project, but I've used them just to gain student thoughts and opinions on certain things that are happening in the classroom. And also, I coach Girls in the Run, so I send out surveys a lot to my parents as far as practice changes, or if for parent volunteers, if they can make it or not. So I just want to show you a few of the ones that I've used in my classroom. So the first one that I've used is a student survey where I surveyed students about changing the schedule of my class. So they were in a routine, but I wasn't fully liking the routine. It wasn't flowing as well as I thought. So I created this survey for them. And this is kind of the Likert scale where they were filling it out. But it was more of an I'm overwhelmed and comfortable feeling. I try to use feelings since that's something that they can relate to better than agree and disagree. And then a yes or no and stuff. So that's one that I did that in my classroom. And then another one that I've done is just another survey like this for practice changes for my Girls in the Run team. So this is just a yes or no survey. And then this was also anonymous, as well as the student survey that I did was also anonymous. And the neat thing is my school is Microsoft based. So when I use Google Forms, it truly is anonymous. I don't know who students are replying to, but if I would use Microsoft Forms, student's ID number is actually collected. So technically I could take their ID number and search it and then find them, which is obviously very complicated, but it's not completely anonymous since their ID comes up for Microsoft Forms. So this is what I found on surveys. I'm interested to hear your feedback on if you think Google Forms is an ethical way to collect data as far as surveys, because I'm thinking about doing that for my action research plan. So if you could give me any feedback on that, that'd be greatly appreciated. I hope this is helpful to you if you're hoping to use surveys during your research. And I'm looking forward to seeing all of your presentations.